Hi, everybody. This is On, and I know it's a little dark behind me here. I'm working with what I've got here on the road. Um, I've been on the road for 4 months now, and I know my glasses are getting a little reflection, so I apologize for that as well. But I'm going to have them to be able to refer to my notes and to see that. Um, it has been an amazing tour, and for those that don't know, I authored this book, The Code Journey, a daily guide for life on Earth, and each year I put out a new edition. So 2023 is out and available, and it's all original work. It's all the blending of many different things that are not used in the traditional ways. So it helps me to focus in and understand what the currents and the energy patterns are and what is accessible, and to understand any point in time in place and how that is affecting us, and what opportunities we might have at hand and what things that we need to pay attention to. So in this video, the Connecting Codes video for this month, I want to talk about why our midterms are so important, because we have that coming up in the United States on November 8th. And it's very interesting that our midterm elections are coming at the full moon, which also has a, an eclipse going on at the same time. So we have all of this kind of powerful energy that's going down, and it's coming right also at the turning point one day after the mid-season point. So the mid-season between the summer and fall timeframes, or between fall and winter. Oh, I've been on the road too long. And so when we start to look at this, we have a lot of powerful energy that is at play. And I want to talk about, from the code perspective, what this is going to mean for our midterm elections. Now, I want to also address a couple of other core pieces in here, which is really looking at elections, and somebody being elected versus being selected. And that is kind of a core thing. Now, a lot of people I know out there, some of them really realize the importance of um, going out and voting and the importance of the vote. And then there's other people that probably are feeling like, I don't understand why I should vote, because everybody's selected instead of elected. And so why would it make any difference? A lot of people are starting to realize that there probably is some play going on. There's been a lot of exposure that has come up about voting machines, and even Pennsylvania, we're starting to see that. And we want to keep our eyes on Pennsylvania with the midterms, because they've come out and said, we're just going to go against the Constitution. Basically, we're just going to go against the law that has been issued to us, and we're going to accept votes that are not dated. And we're going to accept these mail-in ballots. We're going to accept these ones, and they're not going to be dated, and they're not going to have to be verified, basically, which right there tells you there's a huge amount of corruption. So that's going to blow some stuff up in Pennsylvania at these midterms. And this is very, very important. Our midterms, oftentimes we gloss it over and we don't think a lot about it. But in this midterm, it's really powerful, because it gives us the opportunity to flip the rulership in here. And we have a lot of currents that are connected to doing that. And a lot of people, may be thinking at this point, really, how did we get to this point in our world where things are the way that they are? I mean, we're unable to afford the basics. Basically in the last couple of years, it's gone to people having a hard time affording the basics. High crime rate. Crime rate has been soaring the last couple of years. Major corruption showing up in our leaders. Censorship going on. Censorship has magnified in the last couple of years. Multiple diseases being released in the world, being told what we can and cannot have and do, and just a lot of hate and division that's coming up in things. And I think we've been building on this for a long time. A lot of these things have been there for a while, but we're just really seeing them start to surface. And so I think a lot of people wonder, how did we get to this point? Now it's coming out, it's in everybody's face, they're having to deal with it. And basically, if we put it down into a nutshell, we chose materialism over God, or divine presence in our world and having that. So we chose the material things over the heart, basically. We supported corruption over integrity, and we turned our power over to government. We turned our power on and said, here, make our decisions for us because we don't like making them. We don't want to make them. And unfortunately, when you do that and you have people that are not in integrity in those positions, then you're going to get some negative results from that. You're going to get some unfavorable experiences come out of that. And that's what we've been seeing. People have been turning their power over to government and global organizations and things that they've been told are maybe good organizations and they're not. And I encourage people as they start to go to the elections and we start to look at these things to not just vote by party, because it's not about party. There are good people on both sides. There are corruption on both sides of the fence. And we really need to sit down and read what's there, because a lot of people think that various things are about a particular issue. Well, they're not. That issue is being used to separate and divide, create anger and hate and things like that. But when you really get down and actually start reading things, you realize that it's, for example, not just about abortion. Abortion is the issue that's on the forefront, but it's actually not about that. It's about deeper layers of corruption that go into organizations like Planned Parenthood, that goes into a variety of other things that people don't realize, what can be done, that the way things are written, for example, can go past the term of being inside the mother to actually outside of the mother. So when you start to read these things, they're not always what you think they are, and they're not always about the issue that they're trying to get you riled up about. This is on this midterm election, it's going to be very, very important that we do the codes warn, because our mind is not so clear, and there are going to be people that are going to be pushing us and creating urgency in us and creating stress and creating tension, and that will cause people to make mistakes. So I suggest that you sit down and you actually really look at what things say and what they're about before going to the polls, and make your notes and actually, really take a strong look at that. First and foremost, so you're not having to do it on the spot in things. When we look at the code perspective of what election or elections is about, now when we have an election, that is really connected to our wisdom. It's an opportunity to implement what we have learned from past experiences and what people have been doing. Is that really somebody that we want to have carry on, or is that somebody that we need to turn over and give somebody else a chance, who maybe can be a true leader who isn't operating in as many self-interest? When we look at elections in plural, so like we have multiple elections going on all throughout the United States, and that's why we call them midterm elections in particular. When we look at that, that is actually connected to our abundance. So it is our opportunity to bring divine abundance forward into the world through our choices, through our wisdom, through learning from the past. Now, when somebody is when we elect somebody, or somebody becomes elected, what we're really looking to do is to elect those who are operating truly in divine service and not just taking advantage of the position they're in and taking advantage of people because they can. We need to find those people who are willing to stand strong on their own in the truth and the integrity, instead of supporting and just succumbing to the peer pressure to continue to support people who are in lies and deception and manipulation. Now, when somebody is selected, what we're actually seeing at play in that situation is power being implemented to control people and to direct them, not give them freedom, not give them choice, not give them creativity, but to direct them in what they must do in things. So these are important things to keep in mind, because then when we start to look at the code aspects of what vote is about and voting is about, voting is a responsibility to cast, again, the divine presence into the world. And the vote is the divine presence. So when we vote, it's again, we want to really look at what is going to support divine presence. And I know everybody has different opinions on what that may or may not be. And it's important that we really take the time to be in observation, because it's very easy for us to get attached to a particular person being right, or a particular person being wrong, or a particular issue being right or wrong, or things like that. And we really want to come back to what is God centered, what is supporting divine presence. And we need to get our egos out of it. We need to get our arrogance out of it. We need to get the power battles out of it. And this is incredibly important with this particular one, because we do have that compounding of the eclipse, of the full moon energy that's going on. And there's going to be a lot of different emotions come up, and a lot of different emotional reactions, and even rage will come up in people. And a lot of it is going to happen over misunderstandings. So if you have the opportunity to go to the polls very early in the day, I would suggest that. Go when it's quieter if you can. Go earlier in the day, because as the day goes on, things are going to be ramping up. As numbers start to come in, what we're going to see is the corruption is going to start seeing its power being lost. And that is going to lead it to start to create disruptions around the polling places. And that can actually become very deadly, and just very dangerous to be around. So yes, it can actually go to a deadly point if they choose to take it in that direction. And we could see that in a state, for example, like Pennsylvania, where they are going down this very corrupt path, and they're blatantly disregarding the law and the Constitution. So this is something for us to keep in mind. There's a lot of emotional triggers that are going on. We are being given the opportunity, when I look at the code influences in this particular election, to release those that cannot be in integrity. And this is very important. Again, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. If you've got leaders that are taking payoffs, if you've got leaders that are doing and focusing on personal benefit and gain, if they're misusing their power, we need to vote them out. And that is very, very important. This is our opportunity. We have major transformation energy available at this time. And again, we need to break our dependency on government. We need to realize that the more responsible that we are in this election and these midterm elections here in the United States, that the more we can open up peace. So we have to, again, get our personal stuff set aside and really become responsible, really be in that divine alignment, really open to what that is about. Listen to your gut, listen to your intuition, because it is in these elections that we need to bring closure to those that are operating with ill intentions, those that are creating power battles, those that are creating division, those that are creating anger and rage in people and stirring them up. And we have a lot of them. And so we've got to clear that out. We have the opportunity through our votes and our voting in this, if we are willing to learn from the past, if we're willing to say, look, this was maybe a mistake for this person to get put into office, and learn from that and to make the change, we can create success and advancement. And that's going to be incredibly important. We have the opportunity to bring down some pretty heavy duty power structures that are not working for humanity. And again, we need to get the blinders off and stop looking at something just because somebody says, oh, look, this is philanthropic, or this is good, or this is whatever. We got to get the blinders off, and we got to really get down to those pieces and let these major power structures collapse. That is part of the transformation. That's part of going into a new beginning right now. There's going to likely be a lot of hope for the future. This election, if we are operating in responsibility, if we are standing in the integrity and the divine presence, we actually can open up a lot of hope for the future, a lot of hope for a stable future, a good future. That doesn't mean there won't be some bumps and some challenges and things to face along the way. There will be, but we can actually open that path up. And that is very critical at this point, because we're in a major deciding factor, and how we vote and what direction we take things is going to be a huge difference. And it's going to take as many people getting out there and doing this as possible. We're going to see a lot of competitive energy come up in these elections, a lot of confusion being created, a lot of stress and anxiety. So even if people are putting pressure on you when you're trying to get through this process, do your best to stay calm. Don't buy into it. Don't let them pressure you. Don't let them push you. I understand they may have some urgency energy, but the more urgent energy that they have, the more that they are operating on the corruption, the more that they are supporting that. And we don't want to be supporting that. There's a lot of rebellion energy, and that's another thing. Things could come up where arguments break out in the poll lines. It wouldn't surprise me actually if we even have some people planted to create arguments, to create battles in the polling lines, and to start to break out fights, to do things like that, serving as distractions. People getting very emotionally charged, and the rebellion energy coming out, the power struggles coming out, the power battles coming out, and then that becomes very dangerous very quickly. So again, I see that this is likely to accelerate much more as the day goes on. The later in the day, the closer to the closing time of polling places, the danger is likely to rise. So if you can get out early, get out early. It's important that you know who does and does not care for humanity. There's a lot of illusions out there, and people that have been made to not care about humanity, they're made out to look that way, actually may, and vice versa. Those people who have been portrayed in the media perhaps to be very humanitarian may not be humanitarian at all. So you want to keep these things in mind. Again, do your research ahead of time, get your notes made ahead of time, where you don't have the pressure in the moment, and then you can just go in, cast your votes, and get out again. We have the opportunity to create better than expected results. So where we might hope to gain a couple of seats or turnover in certain places, we may get bigger turnovers than we expect. We may have more of that coming through than we expect. It's very important that when we're creating the voting right now, the codes are talking about the importance of supporting freedom and supporting shifting directions, because right now we're not going down a very favorable path in the US. So we need to vote for what will shift our direction, that will shift us towards that favorable path, that will move us towards, again, that divine connection in things. We also want to focus on what will help provide breakthroughs as opposed to breaking down things, because right now we're heading down a path of breaking people down, body, mind, and spirit. We're breaking down the country right now. And so we need to vote to help the country make breakthroughs, again, to be independent, to be able to be self-sufficient, to be able to be in command of itself, so that it's not reliant so much on all these other countries. And we can do it. America is one of the few countries that can be basically totally independent if it needs to. I'm not saying maybe 100%, but we could survive if we had to, and, you know, not have to be totally reliant on other countries for things. So we have that ability and that power, and we want to vote in that direction in there. We want to take charge. This is our opportunity. The codes are saying this is our opportunity to take charge of our lives, to take charge of our country, to take command of it, and to be able to stand up and move in this more self-sufficient direction. And that's gonna be, again, all of our votes are going to move us in this direction if we allow it. But we must learn from the past. We must choose wisely during this election process. Right now, the midterm elections are going to be a transition to new beginnings. So that's another thing that we want to keep in mind. And it's also bringing us through the code energy right now, the opportunity to dissolve our karma. And we look at that again. Where have we made bad choices in the past? Where have we elected leaders or voted things through that really are not what we thought they were? Or we're presented one way and are not that way. This is our opportunity to clear that by, again, voting what is an integrity and voting for what truly supports humanity. So we've got to get the illusions off. We got to get the illusions about the narratives regarding environmental things. We've got to remove the illusions of parties. We've got to remove all of the illusions and really get down to the facts, to the hardcore written stuff, and really look at it and say what is and is not in divine alignment and go in that direction. So this is a huge turning around point. And really, when we look at this aspect again, and the original foundations for putting people into office was really that they operated as an agent of service to the people. And we want to get back to considering that who really is working in service to the people, who really is willing to stand alone in the truth and not succumb to peer pressure, because a lot of that peer pressure is what has supported the corruption and gotten us in a lot of the mess that we're in. So we need strong leaders who cannot be broken, who can stand in that strength of truth and integrity in there. So the codes of elections are actually quite powerful. And this is why we want to vote, because we want to maintain our ability to elect people and not just have them selected for us. And that is what has happened in a lot of places around the world, is that the leaders have been selected. Now, fortunately, and we've seen it in the UK, people are starting to fight back. They're starting to stand up and say, no, that's not what we voted for. That's not what we're going with. And if you're going to install this person in this position of power, we're going to remove them from that position of power. So we have to be willing to do it. So we don't want to lose our right to vote, right? We don't, because our right to vote is our right to hold divine alignment in the world. We don't want to lose the ability to elect people. And so this is why it's so critical. And with all of these energy currents and the codes coming together, it shows that this particular midterm election is incredibly important. It's incredibly important because there is a huge emphasis on this year in particular that is about freedom. And a lot of people think, oh, we need this regulation and we need that regulation. We actually don't. And the problem is once you start to take the freedom away, you lose all the other rights. The people that are pro, we're working against freedom, in essence. These people don't realize that they're not going to have the right to do what they want either. And so once we get rid of freedom, we're getting rid of a lot of divinity. We're getting rid of divine presence. And once you start to get rid of that in the world, you run into a whole another realm of essence that is way beyond just socialism or communism or these types of structural systems that are present in things. So these are my insights. These are my thoughts on things. I encourage you, get out and vote. If you're in the United States in particular, get out and vote. Make your vote count. Make your voice heard. I know it doesn't always feel that way. I know it doesn't always do it. But the more people that we do have doing that, the more opportunities we have to transition into a favorable future. We can open that door to hope. We can make the breakthroughs. We can create successes. And yes, there will probably be some backlash where we have successes, but we can make the successes and we can start to move forward in a favorable direction again. I hope that helps you out. These are such powerful, incredible times, and I hope that you will be active in them. Don't be absorbed by everything that's happening. Be aware, be active, focus on your own life, because that's where the changes are made. Focus on how you're living your life and what you're supporting, and look at that and go from there. And with that, take care, everybody, and I will see you next month, hopefully rooted maybe into a new space or getting ready to go into a new space at that time. and I will definitely be done with touring by that time. So I look forward to delving more into things and seeing what comes about after these elections go through.